She wasn't built to feel. Her skin shimmered violet beneath Earth's sun, her eyes programmed to analyze, not trust. She came from a race where emotion was weakness and family meant hierarchy, obligation, and silence. But the moment she crash-landed on this strange blue planet and met him, everything changed. Matthew didn't see a fugitive. He didn't see a threat. He saw someone lost, just like he once was. In a broken-down barn, with nothing but 2 mugs of coffee and the silence between stars, an alien girl named Dahlia began to understand what it meant to be wanted, not as a soldier, not as a tool, but as a person, as family. She couldn't go back. Not now. Not after discovering warmth that wasn't coded, kindness that wasn't conditional, and a bond that didn't demand submission, but offered choice. This isn't just a story about 2 worlds colliding. It's about one soul awakening, and one man redefining what it means to belong. Because sometimes, the greatest force in the universe isn't technology, power, or even war. It's the terrifying, beautiful act of choosing love over orders. The sky had no mercy the night she fell. A flash tore through the atmosphere, violent, scorching, blinding. A ship, not much larger than a transport pod, screamed across the night in a tail of smoke and flame. Then, silence, the kind that only happens after impact. Trees bent, animals scattered, and a crater opened in the middle of nowhere, hidden by forest and fate. Inside it, curled like a dying star, was her. Dahlia didn't remember the crash, not in fragments that made sense. What she did remember was the sensation of weight, not from gravity but from vulnerability, a feeling utterly alien to her. Her systems were fried, neural sync offline, limbs heavy, bones humming with pain, for someone engineered to be perfect, indestructible. The feeling of being broken was foreign. Then, warmth. A voice, low and unsure, cut through the ringing in her ears. A shadow moved above her, not like the hunters from her world, cold and efficient, but gentle, hesitant, and deeply human. "Hey, can you hear me?" Matthew had no idea what he was looking at. Lavender skin, silver hair, tangled and slick with blood, eyes, strange and glowing. But they were watching him, alert, afraid, alive. He didn't run. Maybe he should have. But something about her, something silent, something aching, made him stay. He scooped her up, mumbling apologies as if she could even understand. He carried her like a secret into the rusted-out barn behind his cabin, a place no one visited, a place forgotten by time. He wrapped her in an old wool blanket, put a heater nearby, gave her water. She watched him the entire time. Hours passed. She didn't speak. Neither did he. Until finally, in a voice hoarse and mechanical, she asked, "Where am I?" Matthew blinked. "You're safe." 2 words. She didn't know what safe meant. Not really. But she felt it when he said it. In the days that followed, the silence stretched long, but not uncomfortable. Dahlia healed slowly. Her body regenerated with alien efficiency, but her mind, her heart, if you could call it that, struggled to process Earth's stillness. Back home, everything was loud. Orders barked. Sirens screamed. Survival came before comfort. But here. Matthew made tea. He fixed engines in silence. He listened to music with no words. And sometimes he looked at her like she wasn't strange, but real. She caught him watching her once, and he didn't look away. "I'm not scared of you," he said. She believed him. But what truly shook her wasn't his bravery. It was the way he offered presence without demand. He never asked what planet she came from, never probed for secrets. He gave her space, let her sit beside him in silence. And when he brought her a mug of coffee, not understanding she didn't need it, she took it anyway. Because somehow, holding that cup, watching steam rise, sitting beside a man with scars deeper than skin. It felt more like home than any place she'd ever known, and she began to wonder, was family something you were born into, or was it something you could find? I don't remember the exact moment the ship gave up on me. One second I was soaring across Earth's orbit, trying to stay hidden from their satellites, and the next, my cockpit turned into a coffin of smoke, sparks, and screaming metal. I gritted my teeth and slammed every manual override I could reach, but the controls were dead, flickering red like the veins of a dying star. I knew two things as I plummeted. One, I wasn't going to die gracefully. Two, I'd failed my mission before I ever touched the ground. When I woke, there was silence. Raw, suffocating silence. No emergency lights, no HUD displays, no voice from command whispering instructions in my head. Just wind, cold, and a strange scent, something earthy, sweet, unfamiliar. I was no longer inside the ship. I was wrapped in something rough and warm. My limbs were heavy but intact. My core system was offline, but my senses were working. I peeled my eyes open and saw him. He was crouched near a flickering heater, shirtless, broad-shouldered, and visibly tense, like every breath he took was measured against instinct. He stared at me like he wasn't sure if I was real, like I'd stepped out of a dream or a nightmare. I tried to sit up. Pain lanced through my side. "Hey, don't move," he said softly, raising both hands. "You're hurt. Crashed, I think." Saw the smoke from miles out. His voice was warm, hesitant, laced with something I couldn't immediately translate. Concern. I'd studied human languages before, but in that moment, my translator was offline. My understanding came not from words, but tone, posture, the way he knelt, close, but not too close, like I was a wounded animal that might lash out if pushed. He offered me a metal canister, water. I sniffed it first. Pure. No toxins. I drank slowly, my throat aching with every swallow. He watched me the entire time, not with fear, not with malice, with curiosity. "You're safe," he said. That word again. Safe. I hadn't heard that word without irony since I was 8 star cycles old. My name is Dahlia, genetically optimized, combat-trained, programmed with 5 languages and 9 survival protocols. But in that moment, I was none of those things. I was something more delicate. I was lost. He said his name was Matthew, lived alone in a cabin off the grid, said the world had too many rules, too many people telling you who to be. I asked why he helped me. He shrugged. "You looked like you needed help. That's all." That answer didn't make sense to me. Where I came from, help always came with a price. Favors were tallied, debts recorded. Even kindness was measured by utility. But this man, this human, had no reason to pull me from that wreck, no command from his leaders, no tactical gain, just compassion. He gave me his bed, slept in a chair, made sure I had heat, clean water, a clean bandage on my shoulder. I didn't understand him, which is why I stayed. I needed to figure him out. Because Matthew didn't look at me like a specimen or a mistake. He looked at me like he saw me. And for the first time since I escaped my world, I didn't feel like property. I felt human. Or maybe something even better. I woke up to a sound I didn't recognize. A rhythmic hissing, then a click, then a low, bubbling hum. By instinct, I rolled off the makeshift mattress on the barn floor, scanning for danger. My body still ached, but my reflexes were returning. I slipped through the creaky wooden door and into the house, drawn by the strange scent. Not toxic, not synthetic, just bitter, sharp, comforting. Matthew was in the kitchen, barefoot, hair tousled, shirtless again. Was that a cultural norm here? He didn't flinch when he saw me. "Morning," he said casually, pouring a dark liquid into 2 ceramic mugs. "Didn't think you'd be up yet." You move quiet. I tilted my head. What is that? I pointed to the steaming mug. This? He smiled. Lifeblood of this planet. Coffee. I took the cup he handed me, inspected it, and gave it a cautious sniff. Strong, scorching, not acidic. He watched me like he was waiting for a reaction, maybe a wince, maybe a scream. Instead, I took a sip. It hit like a memory I didn't own. Warmth I hadn't been trained to recognize. My face didn't show it, but inside, something stirred. Matthew gave a satisfied nod. Told you it was powerful. He had rituals. Every morning, like some sacred human programming, he followed a pattern. He made coffee. Fed his dog, Rue, a golden-furred creature that seemed to consider me her new toy. Then he worked. But his work wasn't like the labor on my world. Forced, controlled, endless. Matthew's work was focused, chosen. He repaired engines, fixed broken solar panels, welded scrap into something useful. I watched, and then I started copying him. At first I did it silently. I mimicked the way he twisted a wrench, the way he rotated tools in his fingers before choosing one. I watched him squint into tangled wires, mutter theories to himself, then laugh when something sparked. One afternoon, I tried fixing his backup generator. I rewired it in under 3 minutes. He stared at it like it had turned into a spaceship. Okay, wow, he said. Remind me never to argue with you over circuit logic. I didn't smile, but I think he knew I wanted to. That night, he handed me a book. Not a datapad, not a tablet, a real book, bound in cloth, worn at the edges. It's about people who live on farms, he said. Thought you might find it relatable, you know. Earth life. I stayed up all night reading it. Humans had something I hadn't expected. Quiet, not silence. There were sounds, wind through leaves, the low chirp of birds, the occasional thrum of passing clouds, but no shouting. No sirens, no alarms, no status reports. For the first time in years, I existed without instruction, and I didn't know what to do with that freedom. So I tried his rituals. I made coffee. I burned it. He laughed. I tried cooking. Set off the fire alarm. He ran in with a towel and a grin. I patched the roof without being asked. He noticed. You don't have to earn your stay, he said one evening, drying his hands on an oil-stained cloth. That's not how things work, I replied. Maybe not where you're from. He looked at me then, like he was trying to rewrite everything he'd ever been told about the stars. And slowly, I realized something. Matthew didn't see me as a project, or an obligation. He treated me like a person, and I didn't know how to be a person. Not yet. But I wanted to learn. Because in this quiet cabin at the edge of Earth, among broken tools and burnt toast, I was beginning to understand what it meant to be alive. The first sign was the static. Matthew was tinkering with an old radio, trying to pull in music from one of the nearest cities. Rue barked suddenly, fur standing on end. The frequency flipped, then hissed, then held a sound I recognized all too well. Unit, Omega, Tracer, Signal located. I froze. My fingers tightened around the ceramic mug I was holding. I didn't breathe. I didn't blink. That voice, it wasn't Earth's. It wasn't even human. It was from home, and home never called unless they wanted something back. Matthew glanced up. That yours? I didn't answer. I didn't have to. I ran outside. Straight to the barn, my escape pod, what was left of it, still buried under a tarp and boards. I clawed through it, searching, praying my fears were wrong. But there it was, a blinking red module I thought had been disabled. It pulsed like a heartbeat, loud, alive, broadcasting, a homing beacon. My stomach dropped. They were coming. Matthew stood in the doorway watching me. "What is that?" he asked. I looked up slowly. "It's how they find me." "They?" "My people." He took a step forward. "You didn't want to be found?" "No. I said flatly. I escaped. That word hung in the air like smoke. Matthew didn't press further. He just stood there, eyes narrowing as the implications landed. You're not going back, he said. I don't have a choice. Yes, you do. I shook my head. You don't understand. They don't rescue. They retrieve. If I resist, they'll take me apart to find out why I ran. Matthew didn't move. His jaw tightened. His voice dropped to a whisper. Then we destroy the signal. I blinked. What? You said they'll come if they hear it. So we make sure they don't hear it. My breath caught. You'd do that? Risk your safety? For me? His eyes didn't waver. You fixed my generator. You taught Rue how to sit. You made the worst cup of coffee I've ever tasted, and I drank every drop. He took a step closer. You're not a problem to solve, Dahlia. You're someone I want here. For a moment, the words didn't register, because no one had ever said they wanted me before. We worked in silence. I cracked open the beacon's casing. Matthew brought tools, a blowtorch, a crowbar. He didn't ask questions about the wires, the blinking glyphs, the alien alloy. He just followed my lead. I told him not to touch the core. It would burn through bone. He raised an eyebrow and said, "Noted." Together, we dismantled it piece by piece, burning out its sensors, crushing its transmitter, burying its memory module in lead. By the time we finished, sweat slicked our foreheads. My hands were shaking. His knuckles were bleeding. Rue barked once and settled into sleep like the danger had passed. But my heart still raced. Now what? He asked, wiping his brow. I looked up at the stars. They'll still come, I whispered, but without the signal they won't know where to look. It'll buy us time. Time for what? I stared at him for a long moment, then answered honestly. To figure out what I am now. That night, I couldn't sleep. I watched Matthew through the crack in the barn wall as he dozed on the porch, legs propped up, rifle resting loosely in his lap. He wasn't a soldier. He wasn't trained, but he'd chosen to protect me anyway. Not because I was useful, not because I was programmed to obey, but because I was me. And for the first time since I left my world, I didn't feel like a fugitive. I felt like someone worth saving. There are words in every language that carry weight far beyond their letters. On my homeworld, family was one of those, but not like it is here. There, family meant a tier in society, a contract of obedience, a bloodline curated for functionality and prestige. It was a hierarchy wrapped in cold steel, where affection was inefficient and emotional ties were seen as design flaws. Children were raised by handlers, not parents. Love was never discussed. The word family carried no warmth, only duty. So when Matthew used it, casually, softly, I didn't know what to do. We were sitting under the stars. He had brought out 2 mismatched mugs of something warm, cider this time. Rue slept with her head on my foot. The wind rustled the trees, and somewhere far off, an owl called into the night. He handed me a photograph. In it, a younger version of him stood between 2 older people, a man and a woman, both smiling. There was laughter captured in their posture, in the way they leaned together, unposed and real. They were my parents, he said. They died when I was 17. I said nothing, just studied the image, absorbing its details like code. I thought I'd forgotten what this felt like, he continued. Home. Connection. He looked at me then, eyes raw, honest. But lately, I've been feeling it again. Because of you. I looked up. I'm not your blood, I said slowly. He gave a sad smile. That's not what family is. I didn't know how to respond. So I got up and walked. I wandered out past the barn, past the generator we'd fixed, past the meadow that always smelled like sage. I stared at the stars overhead, the same stars I crossed to escape, the same ones that had tried to pull me back. And I felt hollow, Not because I missed home, but because I realized something terrifying. I'd never had one. The next day, I didn't speak much. Matthew didn't push. He gave me space like he always did. Instead, he showed me more pictures, memories frozen in time, a camping trip, his mother's garden, his father showing him how to hold a wrench. "Is this what it means to be loved?" I asked. Matthew paused. His expression changed, like no one had ever asked him that before. "Yeah," he said quietly. "It's not perfect. It's not clean. But it's real." He touched his chest. "And it's not something you earn. It's something you give." That evening, I stood in front of the bathroom mirror and stared at my reflection. My body wasn't built to age. My skin was laced with microfilaments. My blood could neutralize toxins. I was created to survive, adapt, conquer. But none of that had prepared me for this. The sudden, aching need to be chosen, not for a mission, not for a purpose, but for me. I found him sitting on the porch again, staring into the horizon like he always did when thoughts got too heavy. I sat beside him, and for the first time since I landed, I reached for his hand. Not out of necessity. Not because I needed assistance or security. Just connection. He looked at me, surprised. "You okay?" I nodded. "I think I understand now." "Understand what?" "What you meant by family." I paused. "And I think I want that. With you." His eyes glistened, but he didn't speak. Instead, he gave my hand a small, gentle squeeze. And somehow, that single gesture held everything I'd never been told, that I was no longer a tool, no longer alone, and no longer unloved. The sky pulsed violet at dawn. Not a natural hue, not Earth's. I recognized the shimmer. It wasn't sunlight. It was a descent field. A small ship, silent and swift, piercing the clouds like a needle. They'd found me. Even without the beacon, even without the signal, I knew they'd traced the last transmission patterns. My people were efficient that way. Precision over mercy, retrieval over reason. I stood in the barn, staring at the ceiling, the old wood groaning above me. My heart was quiet. My hands were steady. I had no orders now, but I had something scarier. Choice. Matthew appeared beside me, a duffel slung over one shoulder, a pair of binoculars in hand. His face was calm, but his eyes storming. "They're landing on the ridge," he said, 2 minutes out. "I can't fight them," I said. "I know." He handed me the binoculars, but I didn't take them. My gaze locked with his. "I don't want to go." "Then don't." "It's not that simple, Matthew." "Yeah," he said. "It is." We made a plan. Not to fight, not to destroy, to disappear. I activated a cloaking shard embedded in my skin. Last resort technology designed for spies, not refugees. I tuned it to Earth's frequency using Matthew's scavenged hardware. He drove me deep into the woods. We buried the last pieces of the pod. We scorched the ground to hide tracks. Rue barked when the sound of the ship passed overhead, but the trees were thick and unforgiving. And when the search squad touched down, all they found was a rusted barn and a man fixing his porch. They left after an hour. They didn't look back. That night, I stood on the edge of the meadow, barefoot, grounded. I wasn't looking up at the stars. I was looking at the cabin, the warm glow from the windows, the sound of a record player turning slowly inside, the smell of cinnamon, something Matthew had added to the cider just for me. He stepped onto the porch. "You coming in?" he asked. I didn't answer right away. My eyes stung. "I don't know how to live like this," I admitted. "You don't have to," he said. "You just have to start." I took a breath and walked toward him. Each step felt heavier than any mission I'd ever completed, because this wasn't programmed. This wasn't survival. This was becoming. In the weeks that followed, the air grew colder. Leaves fell. Rue shed fur like it was her job. I helped Matthew insulate the walls. He taught me how to cook without smoke alarms going off. I taught him how to reprogram his broken satellite dish to play alien symphonies on clear nights. We were building something, not a bunker, not a base, a life. One evening, I caught him sketching. His notebook, worn and full of scribbles, showed a crude diagram of a new generator. I laughed, genuinely. He looked up, startled. "What? You still can't draw wires, right?" He grinned. "That's why I keep you around." I leaned against him, resting my head on his shoulder. "No," I whispered. "You keep me around because I'm yours." He didn't correct me, because he knew it was true. Not by blood, not by code, not by duty, but by something stronger. Choice. And in that cabin on the edge of nowhere, an alien girl who was never meant to belong finally found her place. In the quiet, in the warmth, in the hand that never let go, in a human heart that called her family.